Good evening and welcome to Fox News Primetime. I'm Trey Gowdy. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Impeachment starts next week. Nancy Pelosi said House Democrats were moving forward with impeachment to, quote, protect the Constitution. And then she slipped up and told you the truth. Listen to this.
The House managers are walking into a trial where all signs point to acquittal.
They don't know that. They haven't heard the case. In the court of the Senate, they will make their case. In the court of public opinion, they will make their case. I have great confidence in them, and we'll see. We'll see if it's going to be a Senate of courage or cowardice.
Did you hear that? The court of public opinion, she says. Well, it would have to be the court of public opinion because what you will see next week bears no similarity to a real court. In a real court, there's a judge who is fair and neutral. Next week, the presiding judge is Senator Patrick Leahy, who has already voted twice to convict and remove Donald Trump from office. He would never be allowed to preside in a real court. In a real court, there's a jury of women and men who have not already made up their minds. That is really the only one quality you must have to serve on a real jury in a real court. There are 50 Democrats who will vote to convict next week, no matter what the evidence is. In real court, the jury is told to wait until the very end to reach any conclusions. In fact, you're forbidden from even beginning to reach conclusions until the very end. But not next week. In real court, there are rules of evidence, rules about what kind of evidence can be admitted and how, and I doubt you'll see any of those rules next week. In real court, there is cross-examination. Because as you know, cross-examination is the single best way to determine whether a witness is telling the truth or not. There will be no cross-examination next week because I don't think there are going to be any witnesses next week. Nancy Pelosi says we will see if the Senate is made of courage or cowardice. I'll tell you what takes real courage. It takes real courage to be fair to your enemies. That takes courage. Anyone can protect their friends and attack their enemies. Real courage is when you're fair to everyone, even those you don't like. House prosecutors have asked Donald Trump to testify, and he has refused their invitation, despite threats of a subpoena. Those same prosecutors may ask the Senate to draw a negative inference if he refuses to show up. You know what happens in real court? It's exactly the opposite. Prosecutors cannot comment on the silence of a defendant in real court, and if you do, not only will you lose your case, you might lose your law license. And there is no negative inference in a real prosecution. In fact, it's the opposite. You're actually presumed innocent. So Democrats are free to talk about their court of public opinion. I would rather talk about real court where real people make tough decisions based on the facts and the law, regardless of politics. You know, the rules and procedures we use in real courtrooms are not right and fair simply because we use them in courtrooms. It's really the opposite. We use those rules and procedures in real courtrooms because they are right and fair. It was the rightness and the fairness that came first. But you won't see that next week. Speaker Pelosi, if you're looking for a court of public opinion, we actually have them. They're called elections. Popularity wins. In the other court, in the real court, fairness wins. And what really takes courage is to know the difference between the two. Senator Tom Cotton has a front row seat to the Democrats' impeachment theater. He'll serve as one of the 100 jurors in next week's trial, and he joins us right now. From the great state of Arkansas, Senator Tom Cotton. How are you, Tom?
I'm good, Trey. It's good to be on with you. Good to see you guest hosting this week.
Thank you. You know what I had going through my mind when I heard cowardice? If I'm not mistaken, you signed up for combat after law school, not JAG, but combat. So coward would not be a word I used in connection with you. What do you think about what she said?
Trey, maybe I joined the Army as an infantry officer as just a reflection on what a bad lawyer I was, unlike you. You know, I heard Speaker Pelosi say today that next week we'd see if we have a Senate of cowardice or courage, but we know we have a House of fools because they elected Nancy Pelosi to be their Speaker. I mean, look what they did in this impeachment, Trey. They didn't have a single hearing, not a single witness, not a single document. They rushed it over to the Senate, but then they didn't actually deliver the papers in time to have a trial. Now they want to proceed with a plainly unconstitutional impeachment proceeding to convict and remove a man from office who left office 2 weeks ago. I think the American people think it's pretty strange that Democrats are still obsessing about Donald Trump when we're actually trying to address the problems that they face, whether it's people who are out of work or can't get hours or can't get vaccinated or have their schools closed. That's what the Democrats should be focused on. That's what I'm focused on.
Now, you're married to a real prosecutor. I did it. I was average, but I did it for a long time. We couldn't make defendants testify, and you can't draw a negative inference if they don't. In fact, it's the opposite. What are the House managers talking about, making him come testify? I mean, if they think he's committed a crime, doesn't he have the right not to incriminate himself?
You would think so, Trey, and also it contradicts exactly what they've been saying for the last 3 weeks. They've been saying they didn't need to have hearings, they didn't need to have witnesses, they didn't need to have documents, that the evidence was manifest, it was in front of everyone's eyes on TV, that we all saw it. If that's the case, why are they asking Donald Trump himself to come testify in person?
What do you expect next week, Senator? Do you think they're going to call witnesses? Will there be examination, cross-examination, exhibits like a real trial?
I don't know, Trey. I have not heard the legal strategy from either the president's legal team or from the House managers. As a juror, I'll sit and I'll listen to what everything is said, but my opinion has been very clear from the day the House passed this rushed impeachment that it's beyond the constitutional authority of the Senate to have impeachment proceedings to convict and remove from office.
Now, I served with you for a number of years. You do your homework. So for you to reach the conclusion that trying a president who has left office violates the Constitution, there must be a reason for it. What led you to that conclusion?
Well, Trey, you can just look at the Constitution itself. It says explicitly the president, the vice president, and all civil officers of the United States will be susceptible to impeachment. Donald Trump is none of those things at this moment. And usually when the text of any law, to include the Constitution, is plain, that's the end of it. You don't have to do much more research. Now, I would also point out that the Democrats have not invited Chief Justice John Roberts to sit at this impeachment trial, as the Constitution requires the Chief Justice to sit at any trial of the president. That just further reinforces that the Democrats know that they are not holding a trial of the president. They're holding a trial, really an inquest into a private citizen. It's not constitutional, nor should it be the focus of the Senate right now when we're still dealing with this pandemic and mass unemployment.
Now, you mentioned the pandemic. What are some of the other things the Senate could be doing? If 45 members of the jury say you don't have jurisdiction, you're not ever going to get a conviction. So you're going through with a trial where you cannot get a conviction. What could you be doing and should be doing instead of this?
Well, Trey, I wish we were working in a bipartisan fashion to try to address the needs of the American people. For example, improved vaccine distribution in certain states. But look at what Joe Biden and the Democrats are doing now. Joe Biden, after preaching unity, is governing from the hard left in a highly partisan fashion. Trey, as you know, we passed 5 bills last year, spending more than $4 trillion to help combat this pandemic. And a lot of that money is still not spent. The average vote on those bills was over 90 U.S. senators out of 100. In many cases, we had a unanimous vote, yet the very first thing Joe Biden does is go to the hard left and refuse to cooperate with any Republican. And now we're voting tonight on their budget, and look at what some of these some of these amendments that Democrats are voting down. 50 Democrats just voted against withholding COVID relief money from schools that don't reopen even after their teachers are vaccinated. Another 50 voted against denying money to cities and counties that don't cooperate with immigration enforcement. 42 out of 50 Democrats voted to give stimulus checks to illegal aliens. It goes to show just how partisan and how radical the Democrats in Joe Biden's Washington are governing right now.
Senator, we got about 1 minute, but it seems like some Republicans are of the opinion that if you're going to go forward with this impeachment trial, we're going to have a difficult time confirming your cabinet, and he's chosen impeachment over cabinet. We got about 45 seconds. What's your reaction to that?
Well, that's right, Trey. I mean, once the Senate is sitting as a court of impeachment, it takes precedent over all other business. So my suspicion is that next week we won't have any votes to confirm any of Joe Biden's cabinet. He has a few of his cabinet members already confirmed, but this is just going to push us further into February, getting Joe Biden's cabinet confirmed. It goes to show again what their priority is. Their priority is to continue to obsess about Donald Trump, even after he's left office more than 2 weeks ago, and we have a lot of problems that we should be addressing.
Tom, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy your jury service next week.
Thank you, Trey.